Welcome to VLearn Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 1 of Political Ideas and Ideologies, and the topic is Understanding the Political. Topics to be covered are Introduction, Politics as a Practical Activity, What is Politics, What is State, Politics as a Vocation, the Legitimate Use of Power. Introduction. The term politics is derived from the Greek word. जो politics word है वो derive किया गया है Greek word से polis. It means both city and state. Politics among the ancient Greeks was a new way of thinking and feeling. Politics ancient Greek में consider किया जाता था एक new way of thinking and feeling का. A science of politics is possible because politics itself follows regular patterns, even though it is at the mercy of the human nature from which it arises. Greek political studies deal with constitution and made generations about the relations between human nature and political associations. Perhaps its most powerful component was the theory of recurrent cycle. Politics as a practical activity. Politics as a practical activity is the discourse and the struggle over organization of human possibilities. Politics create and conditions all aspects of our lives, and it is at the core of the development of collective problems and the modes of their resolution. Politics difficult to define precisely. A crisp definition of politics, one that fits just those things we instinctively call political, is possible. Politics is a term with varied uses of nonsense. The nearest we can come to a capsule statement is this: politics is the activity by which groups reach binding collective decisions, though attempting to reconcile differences among their members. There are significant points in this definition. First is nature of politics. That is, politics is a collective activity. पॉलिटिक्स जो है कलेक्टिव एक्टिविटी कंसिडर की जाती है एंड इट इन्वॉल्विंग पीपल. इसमें पीपल इन्वॉल्व होते हैं who accept a common membership or at least acknowledge a shared faith. Politics involves reconciling such differences through discussion and persuasion. Communication is therefore central to politics. कम्युनिकेशन के बिना पॉलिटिक्स कंसिडर नहीं करी जा सकती. Political decisions become authoritative policy for a group, binding members to decisions that are implemented by force. If necessary, politics scarcely exists if decisions are reached by violences, but force or its threat underpins the process of reaching a collective decisions. The necessity of politics arises from the collective character of human life. We live in a group that must reach collective decisions about sharing resources, relating to other groups, and planning for the future. A family discussion where to talk, its vocation, a country deciding whether to go to war, the world seeking to limit the damage caused by pollution are examples of groups seeking to reach decisions. Politics, an inescapable feature of the human condition. So, although the term politics is often used cynically, to criticize the pursuit of private advantage under the guise of public interest. Politics is, in fact, an inescapable feature of the human condition. The Greek philosopher Aristotle argued that man is by a nature political animal. By this he means not just the politics is unavoidable, but rather than it is the essential human activity. Political engagement for the feature which most sharply separates us from other species. Political action may be interpreted as a way to work out rationally the best common solution to a common problem, or at least a way to work out a reasonable common solution. That is, political consists of public choice. What is politics? Political would include any situation where power relations existed, that is, where people were constrained or dominated or subject to authority of one kind or another. Politics exists in any context where there is a structure of power and struggle for power in an attempt to gain or maintain leadership positions. Politics is about power in how it is distributed, but power is not an abstract entity floating in the void. It is embodied in human beings. Power is a relationship existing wherever a person can impose his will on other people, making the latter obey whether they want to or not. Hence arises a situation characterized by leadership, a relation of domination and subordination. Differences on account of political institutions, social context. States differ in terms of their political institution as well as in terms of the social context within which they are situated and which they try to maintain. So, while the democratic state is characterized by representative institution such as a parliament and an independent judiciary, the leader controls the fascist state. There are different forms of the state, but whatever form one has in mind, the state as such is not a monolithical block. To start with, the state is not the same as the government. It is rather a complex of various elements of which the government is only one. In Western type liberal democratic state, those who form the government are indeed with the state power. They speak in the same manner of the state and take office in order to control the levers of the state power. Nevertheless, to change the metaphor, the house of the state has many masons, and of those the government occupies one. Politics as a vocation. The politics bring us back to Webster and his already quoted lecture, that is, politics as a vocation. After arguing that politics is concerned above all with the central political association, the state, there are three distinct elements combined here: a given territory or geographical area which the state controls, the use of physical force to maintain its control. It was also mentioned that each state exists within a particular social context. The study of politics is vitally concerned with the relationship of state and society. A further fact cannot be ignored. This is the continued growth and centralization of state power. If one sees the state in terms of a specialized apparatus of domination, then the history of modern times has been marked by the extension of its scale and grips. The modern state requires an increasingly complex bureaucracy dealing with the mounting variety of tasks. It needs larger and more sophisticated armed force, more regulative welfare agencies, and engages in a wider range of activities than was their case before. This extension of the state sphere of action, its growth and development, applied both to liberal democratic system in their capitalist socio-economic context and to socialized system with their collective economic framework. Weber saw such growth manifested above all in the emergence of a trained, skills and rationally effective bureaucracy, someone of quite a different political and theoretical background. Mark agreed with him on this point. The legitimate use of power. The point is that although the state depends on force, it doesn't rest on force alone. Here, the notion of the legitimate use of power comes in. Power in general, and so the power of the state, can be exercised in different ways. First, Max Weber on legitimation. According to Weber, there are three types of legitimation, that is, three methods by which the wielding of power can be justified. The first type pertains to tradition domination. The second type is charismatic legislation. The third type is of the legal rational kind. It is obvious that the power holders in any system will wish to have their power accepted as legitimate. Hence, they recognize the authority of those empowered by the rules to issue commands. Legitimation, central concern of political science. The idea of legitimating is one of the central conceptions of political science. These are the reasons because of which, as C. Wright Mills put it, it is crucial in studying any political system to investigate the degree to which people accept the existing power structure as legitimate and thus how much the structure rests on consent as distinct from coercion. It is the true that political systems can survive in situations where large sections of the population cease to accord any legitimacy to the system. It is true that political system can survive in situations where large sections of the population cease to accord any legitimacy to the system. The case of South Africa in the recent past may be cited as an example. Similarly, that of Poland, where it seemed that the Zoroastrian regime had little legitimacy in the eyes of substantial population elements. The power is that in such a situation the regime has to rear mainly on force. It then finds itself in a more precaution position. Process of delegitimation. This explains why a revolution is often preceded by a period when the dominating ideas of the system are subjected to sustained criticism. Long before the fall of ancient regime in France, the ideas of divine right and of autocracy were ridiculed and refuted by the philosophers, the criticism of the absolute state. Finally, it must be noted that even in normal times, processes of legitimation and delegitimation are permanent features of any political system. The process of legitimation is carried on in more or less subtle ways, though many channels available for the legitimation of the existing order. Legitimizing ideas are absorbed from the earlier stages of education, diffused through a variety of forms of social interaction, and spread specially though the influence of the press, television, and other mass medias. Finally, it must be noted that even in normal times, processes of legitimation and uh, delegitimation are permanently features of any political system. Legitimizing ideas are absorbed from the earlier stage of education, diffused through a variety of forms of social interaction, and spread especially through the influence of the press, television, and other mass media. Manipulated consent. There are still more effective methods available to prevent subversive ideas from even arising. They may be intercepted at source, the source being conscious and even the subconscious mind. In Marxist language, such manipulated consent would eventually produce a false consciousness. Manipulation can only occur where free choice does not exist, as in one party systems. An important dimension of power is the capacity to affect and mold people's consciousness so that they will accept the existing state of affairs without even becoming aware of alternative possibilities. Consent then become manipulated consent. Personnel of the state machine, the elite. The state is a set of institutions staffed by people whose ideas are, and basic attitudes are largely influenced by their origin and social environment. Uh, Elitist theories accord the highest importance to this factor. In this perspective, the nature of a political system is best explained by an analysis of its elite, that ruling minority which controls the state apparatus. This brings us to a final question which deals with the relation of state and society. The phrase which Marx applied to the Bonapartist states that its power was not suspended mid-air can be generalized to apply to all types of state system. There are some questions on the basis of this session. First one is, what is understood by politics as a vocation? Second, what is delegitimation? Thank you. Happy learning, we learning.